Welcome back to Detroit's Morning Answer with John Anthony. You know, a lot has been made and said about President Trump sending troops outside of D.C. and wanting to send troops to places like Chicago, and Vice President J.D. Vance was here in Michigan yesterday in Howell. And he was talking about if Detroit wants it, they will send them. And, you know, a lot has been said about this. And that's why I wanted today's guest, John Deaton. He's a respected trial attorney and former prosecutor known for his sharp legal mind and fearless advocacy. He is outspoken on issues of justice, constitutional law, and government accountability. With President Trump announcing federal law enforcement deployments to Memphis and potentially Chicago, questions about authority, oversight, and civil liberties are pressing. At the same time, America is grappling with the shocking assassination of Charlie Kirk, a national tragedy that raises questions about political violence, free speech, and the integrity of our justice system. John Deaton brings a unique perspective to both issues, and today we'll examine what the law allows, what it demands, and what justice requires in times like this. John Deaton, welcome back to Detroit's Morning Answer.
Thank you for having me, John. How are you, my friend?
You know, I feel like I lost a brother, in the Charlie Kirk, but we'll get to the Charlie Kirk assassination, John. I know and countless others, I'm from Illinois, and I've had the opportunity to meet Charlie and have a few discussions with him, and I just feel like even though he and I weren't friends, I feel like I lost a brother, John.
Listen, I didn't have the pleasure to or honor to meet him, but I think that it caused a reaction across the nation, really across the world, of people that feel the same way that you did. I was shocked at how emotional I got for someone that I had never met.
Yeah, it speaks volumes of who you are and your character and your integrity. That's why, I think. But, let's talk about this federal law enforcement and troops in Memphis and potentially Chicago. John, from a purely constitutional ground, does the president have to deploy federal law enforcement or the National Guard? Or actually, let me say it this way. What constitutional ground does the president have to deploy federal law enforcement or the National Guard to cities without explicit state or local city consent?
And everyone needs to distinguish under the law from D.C. versus the other states. D.C. is under federal control, so President Trump or any president can federalize it for 30 days, send troops, and then it takes an act of Congress to extend it past 30 days. There's always exceptions. Now, when you get to the states and you take, say, Tennessee for Memphis or Illinois with Chicago, normally, unless there is an emergency or the president invokes things like the Insurrection Act, the state governor is in control of the National Guard. And so in Tennessee, the governor has requested President Trump to send troops. And President Trump, I think, acknowledges sort of this limitation because I'm sure you know that he was out there saying, hey, if the guy in Illinois, Pritchard, hey, call me and I'll help you. You got a problem. We can work together. So that's normally the case. What everyone needs to understand is that there's this law called the Posse Comitatus Act. And it's from the 1800s, and it basically rules that active duty military troops can't engage in local law enforcement. Now, they can protect ICE agents like they were doing in L.A., and they can protect federal buildings and things of that nature, but they can't, do search and seizures or stop people on the street and handcuff them and things of that nature. So that's the general rule. And then there's a exception, the Insurrection Act. If there's insurrection, if there is an invasion, things of that nature, then the president can authorize the National Guard and go into, or troops and go into states.
John Deaton, I've said to myself, now I'm from Chicago. I did a lot of work on criminal justice reform when I was a state legislator there, right? Now, when you look at places like Chicago, You hear Brandon Johnson saying that the president never called him a talk. Well, first of all, you've lambasted him as much as you can. You're a sanctuary city. Illinois is a sanctuary state. And here's what I've been saying to people. And when I'm being interviewed, I think they fear that if the National Guard, if federal police come into the city of Chicago, places like Chicago, Memphis, Detroit, if they're able to solve the crime problem, I think it makes the governors and the mayors of these cities look so bad because they could have solved the problems but didn't. Am I off in my assessment and in my analysis of why these people don't want federal intervention? Because I would pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Trump, I got a plan. I need this. These are the resources I need in order to make this happen." Am I off?
Absolutely not. And there's a big distinction between the politician leaders who what they're saying versus the residents. You could go on X and YouTube and other places online, and you'll see people from Chicago or Memphis or other places doing videos and saying, "President Trump, send the troops here. I can't even walk down to the grocery store," or, I can finally not worry about getting carjacked. And so when the residents are not or even cheering the action of sending the guard, but the politicians are not, that gives you a huge distinction in agendas. And I think this all stems from this era of defund the police and this lack of law enforcement. John, we got the same problem in Boston. We got a mayor, and we got a governor here in Massachusetts. And you would think, when ICE raided, they got 770 people that had criminal records, serious stuff, assault batteries, child rape. You would think that the governor would say, "You know what, President Trump, work with us, come in here, let's get work together. I'm not going to, give you carte blanche authority, but let's get the bad people off the street." People want public safety.
Yes.
That's a basic. If you're a public leader, and that's what your point's getting at, John. If you're a public leader, what's your duty? Your first duty is to make it safe for the public.
Yes, and guess what's happened? And Michelle Wu is, she's Illinois born, so she's infected Boston with the Illinois politics. But John, have you ever heard of a website called HeyJackass.com? You ever been on it?
Not.
So
no, I haven't.
I'm gonna right now. It gives you up to date shootings and what's happening all in the city of Chicago. Now, right now, there's a total of 319 total homicides. Now, I'm looking at last week's shooting tally, and when I tell you, I don't even. It's beyond 20. It's beyond 20, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 people died, and 25 were wounded or shot. That's war zone numbers, John. How and the community is crying for something to change. Why do you think these leaders are not listening to the people who are actually being affected by this? They keep saying that, well, the crime is down. Well, you can fudge numbers. And when you look at what happened with Chicago, they passed this thing called the Safety Act. So a lot of the crimes that normally would have been reported are not being reported because guess what? They don't have to report it anymore. So why aren't they listening to the people who are being affected by this daily, John? I know because I'm from Chicago. I grew up in it. I remember having to duck and dodge and weave. I've been shot at multiple times. This is not how a civilized society should live, John Deaton.
I think it's because they have become addicted to this division, this toxic division, where they want to stay in power, and they think the only way to stay in power is, to be divisive and to hate the other tribe, and so they hate Trump so much that they're guided by that hate instead of love for their constituents. The numbers you just gave, John, the numbers you just gave on air, they're higher than Bogota, Colombia. They're higher than some of the places in Nigeria or Cuba. It's crazy.
Yeah. Now let's pivot to the Charlie Kirk assassination. Now, John, you've been a former prosecutor. I don't know if you listened and heard how they laid out the motive and basically the charges against it. I don't use this coward's name because I just don't utter cowards names when they've done something like this. You've commented publicly that investigators are reviewing the engravings and the symbolic markings on the rifle used and the rounds. How significant is such evidence in determining motive?
Well, it's huge because if you don't have a confession, right, and apparently this scumbag murderer did not provide, there was a but the authorities are telling us he's not cooperating. So he's not right now today giving a confession. So when you don't have that, you have to get his state of mind to prove premeditation. And so when you take those engravings and you connect the dots, you're basically, unfortunately, getting in the state of the mind of a murderer such as him, and you lay it out. And so they're going to seek the death penalty, and to get the death penalty is certainly going to have to prove premeditated, deliberate murder. And but those casings and text messages, comments to his boyfriend, who I would assume is going to cooperate, although I would assume law enforcement's also hopefully using the charge of conspiracy to bring anyone else who played a role, accessory before the act, accessory after the act, because everybody, not just the scumbag, everyone who participated in any way needs to be brought to justice and charged with a capital crime as well.
John Deaton, now in the text message, the boyfriend says, to tell me that, basically, I'm paraphrasing, tell me that wasn't you. Yeah, it was me. What part, how could that be used to build a case against this coward?
Well, one thing that I think is you're going to basically get the cooperation. Now, we've been told by the authorities that the boyfriend is fully cooperating and not necessarily considered a suspect. But at the same time, we have to question whether or not those text messages were intentional to maybe allow the boyfriend to escape, culpability in case he got caught. So I think the FBI and the local authorities are going to, I'm sure, consider all of those options. But one thing I think ultimately that could happen is that they use the death penalty, and I'm not suggesting they should, but they use the death penalty as leverage and say to the scumbag, if you don't come clean on everything and everyone who participated, that's the only chance to save your life.
Yeah, because I know they're looking at this queer gun club in I think queer or trans gun club in Salt Lake City. Do you think he worked alone, or do you believe he had help?
No, I believe he had help. The fact that he was able to evade authorities so quickly, so fast. I mean, granted, it's a chaotic situation, but the chances of this guy at 22 years old being able to sort of, Charlie's coming, I'm going to, grab this rifle and know the exact location of the roof and the higher elevated, clear line of sight to where Charlie was from an elevated position, and then evade authorities for what was it, over 24 hours, maybe 48 hours. It suggests that he had help. It's possible that he's a lone gun, murderer, but I would suspect that there's been some help.
Wow, this is. I mean, you have you seen the reactions? People celebrating that a man lost his life, and a lot of people were saying that if he was really shot by a 30-06, a Mauser 30-06, it would have blew his. Well, he was all. They say it was estimated that he was 200 yards away. Not so, right? 147
yards away. Yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, that's not. it's not the listen. If you have a high-powered rifle with a scope that is a quality scope, 147 yards is not that difficult of a shot. Now, I'm in the Marines, and so I've been trained, so maybe I'm a little biased. Yeah. But if you practiced, now if this kid, the scumbag, never shot that rifle before, right, and he just grabbed it, then that would be suspect. Right. That he could pull off that shot.
But he grew up with hunting and rifles. A lot of people. Exactly. Are you aware of people saying that he broke down the Mauser? Is that true? Did they find it completely intact, or was it broken down? A lot of people saying, well, he wouldn't have been able. But if he grew up with weapons, he had enough time to break it down. If it was broken down, there's different reports, or if it was intact, or if it was broken down. Do you know?
No, it's contested. A lot of people think that he had time to break. Listen, if you practice that, if you grow up hunting, that rifle is typically used, for hunting. Then you would be able to have time, And so if he broke it down, put it in his backpack, a lot of people think that, the size of it wouldn't even fit in the backpack. And then when you see him coming off the roof, you don't really see the rifle in clear picture. So a lot of people are saying, "Where's the rifle?" Yeah. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and I agree with you. The disgusting people that celebrate it. We had it here in Massachusetts as well, where some elementary school teacher gets online and starts singing and praising. When you go online, the media at first in MSNBC with that a scumbag guy says, "Oh, maybe it was a MAGA guy who celebrated and accidentally shot his gun into Charlie," or people just describing Charlie in a certain way. When they would say extremist and other adjectives, they never said father, husband, father of 2 young children. Like, how about, look at that. There's a human being lost his life because he chose to do it the right way, face to face. Let's have civil discourse. Let's have a debate. Here's what I believe, why I believe it. Now, I'm going to show up and you face to face prove me wrong in a civil, heated debate way. That's what America was founded on, and he lost his life, and it still hurts, man.
And now they're demonizing him. They're calling him racist. I every time I see it, man, I can't help myself. I engage in whoever posts it, calling him racist. I said no. Charlie challenged narratives, and if you're saying that because he challenged the narratives, he was racist, then I'm racist too. John Deaton.
Yeah. No, I listen, I agree with you. It's if we stop asking questions. For example, if we don't question DEI, if you question DEI and racial quotas, that doesn't make you a racist, right? It just let's have a discussion about it.
Yes.
And I'm sure that's all. Let's have a good discussion about it and figure out what's the right way to make sure people don't get discriminated, make sure that people are not subject to unlawful, racism in the workplace and things of that nature. But Charlie was doing it the right way. Our country, John, as you know, was founded. Lincoln and Douglas debated slavery. They didn't start shooting each other.
No. Now, John, we got about 45 seconds left. I don't know. Trump just declared Antifa as a terrorist organization. Have you heard of this new group called Trantifa? The trans and Antifa combining together?
No, you're first time I've heard it right now, but it just makes me shake my head that here we go with another organization that's going to cause more division in this country. The division in this country, John, is probably our biggest threat right now.
I agree wholeheartedly. John Deaton, a U.S. Marine veteran, cancer survivor, father of 3 daughters, trial attorney, and author who overcame significant challenges to build a successful life and advocate for underrepresented communities. Born right here in Highland Park, Michigan. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, my friend. Have a good one.
All right, that's John Deaton, guys. Guys, we got a program note. When I come back from break, we're going to be joined by Richard Battle, a fifth-generation Texan. You guys know it's we celebrate Constitution Day. We're going to discuss why. And we got a programming note about what's happening on Sunday. We'll be right back.